Michael Dewick here again, wanting to take you inside a Working Genius workshop. In the couple of videos that I've done prior, which I'll link to in the description, we took a look at a team map of six individuals where we mapped their genius and their frustration. And then we talked about making individual commitments, which is an exercise where we ask each team member to say, hey, in light of what I've learned about myself and how I approach work, what my geniuses are, where my frustrations are, these are the things that I'm going to commit to. And one of the things I don't think I mentioned in that video is the value that this brings to your team, because no longer are you the sole person who holds everyone accountable. This kind of makes things public, and it's really an invitation on behalf of your team to everybody else saying, hey, what, you can hold me accountable to this. And I think that is an important element to even talk about in this regard, is that element of accountability, and it brings this shared responsibility for that together. And on that note, this is kind of in the same vein when we talk about team norms and meeting norms, meaning what is the new normal, what is the behavior that we're wanting to expect and have as we operate and function as a team. And so one of the things might be simply to commit to not skipping a stage. Because when we skip a stage, there's activities and there's people with geniuses in those activities. And when we skip that, we actually are also skipping people. So this is a great way to recognize and value the people that we have and saying, hey, you know what? Understand that you have a genius in this. And so we want to make sure that we are creating and having enough space and spending an appropriate amount of time in each activity, because that also just speaks to the value of the work that you're doing as a team, but also to the value of the individuals that you have on the team. Secondly, maybe especially for this team that we looked at, we're going to acknowledge our tendency to skip discernment and make sure that we create space. So again, this is the team app that we were working with. They didn't have any genius representation in discernment. And so they're going to want to, especially because of their high galvanizing tendency, to want to make sure that they are making discernment a priority before they galvanize. And so they want to create space for that. And then lastly is simply identifying when my genius is helpful and necessary, meaning, you know what, if I have a genius of discernment, it needs to be used, especially as it's used and helpful when we're in that decision-making process, when we're in that feedback loop of invention and discernment, and we're going back and forth and we're needing to come to a decision. And that is when that's really helpful. Then there's going to be times when my discernment and or my wonder, those are my geniuses, aren't going to be helpful, and that's especially when we're in enablement tenacity phases. And so I'm going to need to regulate my genius. And so likewise for you and your team is just identifying, hey, what stage of work are we in? And do I need to regulate, or can I tap into my genius? And so with regards to meetings, uh, having this model can be super helpful so that we can clarify the purpose of the meeting. Maybe that's going to be a new norm. So before you have the meeting, you're going to be able to clarify the purpose of the meeting. And secondly, identify the stage of work needed for the meeting. So are you in brainstorming? That's kind of that ideation. Or are you in decision making and needing to activate people? Or are you in kind of obstacle clearing mode where you're in that implementation and you need enablement and tenacity? And so just bringing that clarity is going to help your team know how to participate and whether they need to regulate or step into their genius. And lastly, is just simply holding one another accountable to maintain the altitude of genius that is necessary for what stage of work that you are in. So that really means not allowing someone like myself with the genius of wonder to hijack, a daily stand-up meeting where it's very obstacle clearing. We're in that tenacity mode. We're trying to finish something, and I'm coming in and being, hey, have we thought about this? Or on the opposite side, where we are in that brainstorming mode, and a well-meaning individual says, hey, have we thought about where we should, put in the towel racks in this house? Have we thought about, like, they're going into the details? So depending whatever the project, whatever the industry is, there's those finer details that are really important, and tenacity people will think about those things. But sometimes we need to just kind of hold one another accountable and say, hey, you know what? That's really helpful. We're going to need to ask those questions, but we're in the ideation. We're just brainstorming right now. And we kind of need the freedom of no limits at this point so that we can come up with the best possible solution. I hope this has been helpful for you. If you have any questions, please send me a message, send me an email, coaching@michaeldewick.com. Love to hear from you. Have a good day.